Narendra Taneja, India's leading energy expert. Narendra, should India be concerned by the return of the tariffs? Is India willing to sort of sell out all of everybody just to keep Trump happy? Your thoughts on the return of tariffs and how significant they are for India and then for the energy markets?
Well, you see, you have no option. I mean, we have a close economic ties with the United States. United States is an important strategic partner. And when you look at the geopolitical chess, I mean, we need the United States and probably the US needs India as far as Indo-Pacific and China, are concerned. But when it comes to tariff, I mean, you have no alternative but to deal with it. And that's precisely what we are trying to do. We are negotiating a trade deal with the United States, and hopefully we will be able to conclude it within the next couple of weeks, if not sooner. And let's see what comes out of it. But of course, it's President Trump is not an easy customer. He's a very difficult person to deal with. He has his own ideas, which may or may not be based on sound economic fundamentals. But then you have no alternative just to deal with him. That's precisely what Japan is trying. That's precisely what other countries in our part of the world are trying to do. But the question is that in the process we have started now engaging with other economic partners, including China. China may not be our great friend, but we are kind of reworking our economic relationship, with China as a part of, a strategy, hedging strategy, and similarly going for other economies of the world, including the European Union. So that's precisely what alternative that we have. On the one hand,
What about the extra threat from Trump? It's not only the bilateral, you need to deal with tariffs, but now he's threatening the BRICS. Any dealing with the BRICS, he wants to kill the BRICS. Your thoughts on that?
well, you see, question is, can you kill BRICS? You see, BRICS is a coalition. It's not an organization with a permanent secretariat or a constitution. It's a movement. So can you kill a movement? Can you kill a coalition? And moreover, when you look at the construct of BRICS, you have China on the one hand, then you have Russia, you have India, you have Indonesia, you have Egypt. Egypt and India are not anti-West. India is not anti-West. Other members of the BRICS may be, but India is not. Egypt is not. So Indonesia probably is also not. So the question is that BRICS is a fantastic movement, and I think if you look at it, it represents roughly 45% of the world population, close to 40% of the global GDP, bigger than G7. And I think whole idea is to build a kind of global order which also works for emerging economies, not only for G7 or the rich countries. So it's a movement. It's going to take time. India is committed to it. China is committed to it. Russia is committed to it. New members like United Arab Emirates are committed to it. And I'm sure it's going to succeed if you see the voices coming out of Brazil, because the summit is going on there, as you know. So President Trump or the United States, for that, many commentators in the West might have, different idea of BRICS. There are many who say it's anti-West. They want to kill it. It's not only President Trump. There are many, many, including newspapers and social influencer, politicians, so on and so forth. But I think it's misplaced. BRICS is not anti-West. BRICS is a movement basically to make our world even better, even to help emerging economies, to help build a new global world order.
We have the situation now, Narendra. I think I'm covering the oil markets for 30 years, and two things have happened in the last 3 months of this crazy period that I think I would have bet my house would never have happened. And that is the first one when Iran started sending missiles at the end of the war with Israel from Iran to Qatar. Oil prices started falling literally when the missiles were in the air. And now OPEC Plus increases supply by a greater amount than the market expected, and raised the OSP selling price to Asian buyers in the same 24 hours. What did prices do? They went up. I mean, what kind of universe are we living in? Is demand still solid? It appears that the Saudis think they can raise their official selling price to Asian buyers. Demand must be solid. No impact from all this trade nonsense. Your thoughts on why that's happening? These things we've never seen before.
Well,
Increased supply, higher prices.
it's a good question. I mean, there is a kind of course, the general belief across the world that when it comes to oil markets, they're driven mainly by or based mainly on two fundamentals, demand and supply, as everybody knows and talks about, and geopolitics. I mean, geopolitics depends. I mean, people like me, I believe that oil is 80% geopolitics and only 20%, demand and supply. But there is another factor that that we don't see 25 by 4 by 7, but we do see occasionally appearing on the horizon, like you mentioned, when Iranian missiles were going to Qatar, actually oil prices were coming down at that very minute. So who was the actor behind? Why it was happening? So is there any kind of, call it God's hand or call it, some hand? There is another power which is kind of emerges on the surface, plays a very important role, and then disappears to reappear again. I think there is one. I really, it's very difficult. I don't have an evidence, so I don't want to say, all right, this is the power. They are the people. These are the trading houses, or these are the giants, or these are the kind of forces sitting wherever. I can't say that because I don't have any evidence. But when I speak with my friends in the energy circles, many of them are very powerful CEOs. In private, when you talk, they do talk about these things. When you speak with energy diplomats, not only in New Delhi, but in Tokyo or in Vienna or in London and DC and other places, they do talk about it. The power, and sometimes these powers are used even for geopolitical purposes or to resolve a geopolitical turbulence, let's say in Libya or in country X or country Y. So, I mean, there is this third power which plays a very, very important role, very difficult to define it, very difficult to produce evidence, but I remain convinced that there is that power, and that power also plays a role somewhere. Now, I just want to quickly add one thing at the same time. When we talk of, geopolitics and demand supply, another factor is anxiety. The people who sit in front of the computer screen and actually drive the markets, many of them may not be that well versed how, for instance, a geopolitics functions. Or if the Iranian missiles are going or the jets from Israel are going, actually, should we be buried to, let's say, on the scale of 1 to 10 to 9 or only 1? Is that just optic, geopolitical optic? Many of them are not able to interpret. I interact with some of them in our part of the world, and when you sit down, long conversation with them, it takes you no time to realize actually they don't understand it. They understand only demand and supply.
Narendra, we've talked a lot about the issues of the day of the last few months, and obviously in the center of it is the sort of unilateral tariff declaration of the U.S. But I wanted to get your thoughts on, obviously, as you mentioned, India, like most countries, has to fight this fire that's sitting in front of them today. You've no choice, nobody has. But what is the legacy? What do you think is the big geostrategic legacy of this sort of kind of new, as Mike described it, once in 100 years, U.S. exceptionalism with on steroids? What do you think the legacy is for countries like India? Does it we've seen, as you've said many times, we don't want Russia to go into the arms of India or into the arms of China, etc., and previous reasons. What do you think the geostrategic legacy here is for other things to happen as a result of this?
Well, this is a very, very interesting question, my dear, because a weak America is not in our interest. A weak America is not in the interest of the world. What President Trump is doing is, essentially helping China. Probably China would have taken another 30 years to become a superpower. But the policies of President Trump is helping China to the extent they might actually emerge as a very big power within the next 15 years. And that's not a good news for many countries around the world, including Japan, India, and even Russia and Western Europe, of course. So the thing is that it's very short-sighted and is fundamentally destroying many things that the world actually has been used to look upon the United States. Some people even used to feel very proud. Killing institutions, questioning institutions like Harvard, Columbia, Stanford, for that matter, many media establishments too. I think it's not really good. So many people, including many in my part of the world and my country, they're very worried about it. President Trump might be doing some good things, such as drill, baby, drill. India is very happy about it. But at the same time, a weak America, if America grows weak and is growing weaker by week, literally, if you see it very carefully, I mean, the way we look at it, it's not really good for the United States. Inward looking America is a bad news for the whole world, especially for those countries which enjoy strategic relation with the United States, such as Japan, South Korea, Western Europe, India, Australia, and New Zealand, and many countries in your part of the world in the Middle East. Is very bad. So I think he probably needs good advisors who understand diplomacy, who understands, strategies, and who understand how the world is going to look like in 50 years from now. That said, at the same time, but when you look at the result, what is happening that, there are other aspects. The result is going to be that Europe will emerge as strategically autonomous Europe, not part of the West, but Europe, will emerge as a kind of strong military power, a strong economic power in 20 years from now, and the second largest economy, probably overtaking even China, if they play their cards well. And in the process, we hope that Russia will also emerge, strategically speaking, quite autonomous. And then Japan will have to reconsider whether they should have nuclear weapons or not. And even countries like many countries like Australia would have to reconsider all these things. So I think if you look at very carefully, just because the United States under President Trump is not able to see the world today and the world tomorrow, strategically speaking, correctly, the entire world will be paying the price. But above all, the United States people, their institutions, their businesses, their markets are going to pay even the bigger price. And the result will be Indo-Pacific, the entire region we are part of, China is part of, Korea is part of, Australia is part of, Japan is part of, and actually will be pushed into massive geopolitical turbulence thanks to President Trump.